Back in the early days of the internet, we had a little something called creepypastas. I'm sure you all already know this, some famous examples being Ben Drowned, Smile Dog, Slenderman, and of course, Sonic.exe. These stories weren't anything groundbreaking, but they will always hold a special place in my heart. As a kid, I would watch hours of creepypasta content, mostly involving Pokemon, surprisingly enough, and I know I haven't really brought that up, so it may come as a surprise to some of you. Though, there was one that caught my eye. See, I've loved Sonic ever since I was a kid. I had the Sega Genesis collection for the Xbox 360, oddly enough, and that's how I would play the classic Sonic games. Along with various other means like hanging out with my friends and playing it. So when I heard there was a creepypasta about him, I was curious. And he was pretty popular too. But I didn't actually know him from the creepypasta. I knew him from the 2012 game made by Mist Crimson due to Markiplier playing the game. So that begs the question, who even is Sonic.exe? I mean, you'd be right to think that this guy is some kind of joke. I wouldn't even read the 2011 creepypasta until much later, and obviously it was bad. You probably know that, especially if you're a returning viewer. Is this Sonic.exe? Or is this? Or this? Or this? Well, technically, all of them are. Sonic.exe has evolved into something completely different than what it used to be. It's a whole subgenre of the Sonic community with a lot of people making new twists and games about it. There is no longer cheap jump scare galore. It's become something beyond that, though that still exists, don't get me wrong. Different stories and completely different continuities that explain different things. But don't worry, dear viewer. For this video, I'm going to explain everything you need to know about modern Sonic.exe and what happened to him, because this phenomenon is so interesting. Hopefully, you can get a better understanding as to what Sonic.exe is now and how he is much more than what he used to be, but also some of him still lives on. Here is the beginner's guide to Sonic.exe. A lot of creepypastas were left in the past. You could argue that they still live on through other projects. I mean, a lot of people can still recognize them and they still can be used. I mean, even I get excited seeing someone like Smile Dog if they're using an FNF mod or a game, but you can attribute that to nostalgia. They haven't evolved the same way Sonic.exe has. You see, because of its absolute absurdity and it being the spooky Sonic, it actually gained a lot of traction. People ask the question of, what if Sonic.exe was good? What if a Sonic horror could work? And ever since the mass release of Mist Crimson's 2012 game, more and more people either made fun of it, rightfully so, or were scared of it because they were a kid. Like me. And I didn't put this in the script, but thinking about it, it kind of reminds me of Undertale and how that spun a bunch of AUs, and you could kind of think of it like that. And while we may have laughed at it then, it's definitely not what it used to be though. It has had its growing pains, games that were awful, but it was undeniable that it had made an impact. Games with .exe at the end of it started to appear, and that would continuously carry its legacy. The game's varied from completely bad to really good experiences like Sonic.exe. This would only grow as time goes on. But I guess that doesn't explain what Sonic.exe is. Sonic.exe is no longer just one entity, it's kind of used as a way to promote Sonic horror. Now, not every Sonic horror creature is Sonic.exe. There are differences between a Sonic pasta and Sonic.exe or an exe. Sonic pastas are generally used to explain a horror story or doesn't relate to the retelling of Sonic.exe. So El Pendrive Azul is an example of a Sonic pasta. It's a play on of words of creepypasta and Sonic. You put it together, you get the idea. This is 2011X or X. You will see him in a lot of Sonic horror media, and you could tell it's him because of his gray shoes. And also generally he has a certain art style to him, but this is how you distinctly know it's him from the creepypasta. This is not the same entity from the game, but it is counted as an official reboot to the character from the creepypasta specifically. Okay, you following? Though 2011X does get his own game, it is not the same as the 2012 game. Okay, the reboot, it basically tries to do with all the bad storytelling and replace it with something new. If Sonic.exe has red shoes, it's likely a reference to the Mist Crimson game. So just note they are different entities in different continuities, but both technically Sonic.exe. The phrase has become so popular that there's a whole subgenre to the Sonic horror community. EXE usually means executable file, but in the community, it means a certain creation that fits into a criteria. An EXE can be multiple things, and the meaning is a little loose sometimes. But in order for it to be considered an EXE, it has to be some sort of retelling of the original Sonic.exe or a different story that takes elements from it. So when you refer to an EXE, its name doesn't necessarily have to be Sonic. It could be another character. An EXE is likely just the name of the creature if it's a retelling of the original Sonic.exe, or a different story that takes elements from it. 2011X is an EXE as he directly retells the story in a different way. This is Sonic Rewrite. He's one of the more popular EXEs out there. He's a unique case, but uses Sonic.exe and claims to be one. You could use EXE loosely, but most of the time they will have an appearance with sharp teeth and unsettling features. The other reason people do a different spin on Sonic.exe specifically is likely because it gets views. I mean, let's be real here, okay? This is Lord X, a future incarnation of 2011X. This is Lord Mortis, written by someone else, but is a potential future of 2011X. I know this can be confusing, and I'm trying my best to make it simple to anyone who wants to learn about Sonic.exe and why this phenomenon is interesting, because it is a whole genre with a massive fan base. You all knew where this was going at some point. This could be attributed to a game called Friday Night Funkin'. Ever since Sonic.exe Friday Night Funkin', there was a boom of interest. Why? Because it was pretty good, and a lot of people loved it. So much so, they wanted to have their own takes and tell their own stories. And so they did. People started writing their takes on Sonic.exe or wanted to make a game with their vision. Then it just spread like that. Sonic.exe was no longer just one entity, but many told by different people. Over the years, people wanted to keep trying until we landed on some pretty fun games like Sonic.exe Outcome Memories. I already recently made a video on this, but this project celebrates the many years of EXEs and puts it into a pretty fun, easily accessible game on Roblox. There are a ton of other EXEs I could talk about and delve into, but I've already done that and it took me weeks to finish. However, I will tell you this. The silly side of things still live on. On the Friday Night Funkin' side of things, there are countless mods dedicated to this one genre, constantly trying to mix things up. One of my favorites is Confronting Yourself Zone, as it sort of shows some of the history of Sonic.exe and has some pretty good songs. There's also Hit Single. While not a Sonic.exe mod, it does feature a few characters within it. One of my favorite songs is Strike You, featuring Lord X. It's a hypothetical that asked, what if Lord X had to move on from his vessel? A god having to face a form of death is a cool concept. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's also Sonic Rewrite, or Sonic Round 2, which is an FNF mod that I highly recommend because it is so good visually and it just has so much personality oozing out of it. Link for all these mods that I bring up in games down in the description below. My job is to, by the end of this, hopefully get you interested or at least get you in the know as to what happened. The reason I'm trying to make a video on this is to explain why I think Sonic.exe is the way he is today and how it's evolved into something completely different. I'm also not going to ignore the insane amount of bad people in the community, but I think that it can happen to different communities the more it grows. The bigger the fan base, you know, the more rotten eggs show. But there's also good people that just like different versions of Horror Sonic. I make videos explaining the many different stories and games related to the character, and I've had a lot of fun. For example, this is No More Innocence. It doesn't look like Sonic, but he uses Sonic the Hedgehog to make people addicted to the game, as if you're not already. But in this case, if you're not playing it, then you get physically sick, and as time goes on, he'll torment you, and it's not really a great time. I know I don't fully explain him justice in this video, but I'm just trying to give you an idea. This is Clocko Sonic, who uses your nostalgia against you. The amount of quality animations on this guy is impressive, and his lore goes pretty deep, but if you watch my channel, you already know. You don't have to be an FNF fan to like Sonic.exe. he has a ton of games on GameJolt, like Sonic.exe Wrath of Mobius. It's connected to a much larger universe and tells a completely different narrative to the original game and has some pretty fun gameplay. Sonic Saves Robloxia is another example that delves a little deeper into the horror aspect, and it's something I really recommend to Sonic fans, as you can technically play through the game without the horror aspect of it. Sometimes Sonic.exe is just an experience that you watch unfold, but it can also be a game that aims to be a good time, like Outcome Memories. It's multiple stories told differently, and there's a whole world of creations you can look into. Even the songs made around him are good, some iconic ones being I Miss the Quiet or Subterfuge with Lyrics. And if you're not a fan of the typical scary versions of Sonic.exe and you want something funny, we have Sunky.mpeg, who's just a low guy. Now, the original creator of 2011X did do some pretty bad things, but we've taken what Sonic.exe can be and shaped it into multiple different things. The creativity and potential of EXEs is limitless, so if anyone is watching this, give it a try. And I know this sounds like an advertisement, and it accidentally partially is, but I've spent a lot of time delving into stories and explaining them to people so they can be easily accessible, because the reason I started this was because I couldn't find people who were going in depth into these creations, because there was a lot to know, but not a lot of people telling it in an easy way. I don't always do the best job, but I really do try to do my research. And I spend a lot of time scripting and reading, and I may mess up a lot, but I do this because I'm passionate about it and because it's piqued my interest. The world of Sonic.exe is vast, and while not perfect, there is a passionate fan base with a ton of cool creations. Hopefully this cleared up any confusion on what Sonic.exe is now and what happened to him. Thank you for watching my silly video essay. I truly am honored to have people watch my videos at all. Subscribe, and remember, stay freaky.